Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. First off, I want to thank you for the support on the first episode where we review community gameplay clips. This is where we provide fast tips, and you can really see it from the community firsthand. Now, I want to do this more frequently. If you want more, please leave a like so I know. I'm definitely going to be doing this more, but hearing your feedback and thoughts, well, let's just get into today's clips and tips, and also don't forget to comment if you have tips to give to the community as well. This is a group effort. I'm excited. Let's get into it. Now with our first clip, just a reminder, I know not everyone's gameplay in clips are perfect, and that's perfectly okay because the whole purpose is to be educational. Remember as a seer to be able to scan around and look around. If you look at your inventory and you're fine, be very, very quick with what you're looking at and the resources that you need. So I'm going to pause right here because this is unfortunate. Sometimes your opponents and your teammates do get knocked. So if you have this information, the first thing to do is usually to back up from the scenario, maybe go towards your teammate so you have the upper hand because they have to cross an open field to get to you. Now, it's helpful that you do this, is that you do kind of scan and you do play this rock and try to gather some ground. This is also not a bad option, but the downside here is that you knew to play the rock, but then you instantly kind of cover this angle right here and your hitbox is really large, but you lack information on where the other teammates are located. Now, it's okay to miss your shots. I'm going to pause that here as well. It's okay to miss your shots. We all do. If you miss your shots when you have the jump on an opponent, my rule is go in the test range and just practice. The RE45 tends to pull a lot more towards the right initially. It's just one big pull to the right, so you know to counteract it by pulling the opposite direction. Now, you continue to play the rock. If you're not getting any cracks, remember just to keep playing that rock and back up, back and forth. So these are just missed shots, but they could have been open opportunities for you. Now, what you could do, just a thought here, if you're missing shots, I know that there's a bit of a panic that happened at the end there, so let's go back an additional few seconds. You did have the rampage. Remember that the RE45 is definitely designed for a more close range. So if you're not going to use the rampage, pull an AR like a flatline, anything along those lines that you're going to feel a lot more confident with until somebody is literally right in front of your face, so then you can use the RE45 a lot more confidently. So even though you panic punch and you panic, remember to never give up. Even if you miss your shots here, let me show you an example, and I can go in the test range and show this to you. What you do whenever you reload, cut towards the left of this rock right here. Instead of reloading, there you go, you already did it. But then you kind of gave up on it. Cut more towards the rock, and then either slide, move around. You could slide jump, even though if you're being shot at, just play that rock a lot more, climb on top of the rock. There's a lot of different things you can do if cutting the same angle just isn't doing it for you. So those that are watching, let's go into the test range and I'll show what I mean in terms of the quick peeks. Alright, first let's talk about loadout choice. I know that you had the Rampage and the RE45, but sometimes, especially with the current meta, and I know that was last season's meta, but you can still run, let's say, a 30-30, or anything along those lines to get you some range, even like a hemlock, a flatline, something to give you a little bit more confidence when landing that initial shot instead of relying on the RE45 at a distance. The RE45 is definitely strong now because of the going into the crafter, but you could definitely run, let's say, an R99, a car SMG, a Volt, even an alternator, something a lot more stable in terms of when you're trying to give a track. So let's say that you happen to run into that scenario. We'll run the RE45 and we're going to use a bit of geometry here in the back of the map just to showcase an example. Just make sure to really, really hug that geometry. I'm glad that you kind of chose the more aggressive approach. Sometimes just backing up is also just as effective, and you use your seer ult really, really strong to get you the information. Remember, if they are, let's say you're peeking this angle here, and this isn't the perfect representation, it's pretty close, but if you had that initial drop shot on them, it would have been a lot stronger. Because remember, so the hardest thing to track is when an opponent is looting and they're not looking at you, because their strafe isn't necessarily to counter you, it is just all random of what they're doing. So trying to land that shot can be a little difficult on those type of players as well. But if you're trying to get some of the initial shots on the opponent, trying to keep it stable, don't move around as much as you think that you need to. Even if you're on controller, people overthink the recoil. And if you just let the recoil kind of do the work for you and you land more on chest level and don't panic shot, breathe for a moment and then get that opportunity. But remember to keep always hugging that geometry. Even if you reload, back up a little bit, and if they wide swing you and you think they're going to, you can just climb that box. And even on console, you may not be able to do a tap strip, but you can still jump forward and get yourself that jump that way, just to get out of the situation so they don't have the jump on you. Get the jump on them instead. That can also be done if you get the jump on in terms of, let's say, damage. Let's say you do a lot of damage. What you could do is slide, jump, and kind of make a push forward to get yourself a little bit of momentum, just to kind of surprise them, because they know you're going to peek this angle, so sometimes taking another angle can be very beneficial. Let's say you did that. and they beamed you out of the sky, but at least you tried for something, and that's the beauty behind it. I know there was another opponent, so that really the key was to get that intro damage, and that's kind of what I'm harping on and my biggest focus is. All right, let's segue to the next clip. Now, this is an interesting clip, and I'm going to go back just a little bit, because you already saw the spray was fantastic. This was a great opener. We're looking at a duos clip here, so thank you so much for your clip here, because I found a very constant theme from watching all of your clips, and that I selected a few from today. The theme is, when you push, or whenever you're using anything, make sure that you have a good, strong angle, that you have cover to play around, because you can have good aim, just like we saw the other person. Listen, not everyone's aim is perfect, so I'm pausing again. But remember that even if you have good aim, you should approach the situation with as best positioning as possible. Because we're going to see here, some decent shots were landed. You know, you got the advantage, great angle here. Now, the unfortunate part, even though you got the jump on him, if you're reloading, if you're ever reloading, you should look towards an angle so you're protected. Or immediately start slide jumping in, which is, I know what you do. But the downside is here, I mean, it's going to pretty much cost you. This was a great cue and tactical to get the Valkyrie to not push. But again, the downside is here that because you're out in the open, there's not much for you to do. So if we backtrack and we look again, if we think about what you could have played, was this box right here. You got the jump. Play closer to the box. Shoot, 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 shoot. Go to the box immediately to the right now once you're done shooting, instead of pushing forward. Remember, you have the health advantage. If you're reloading, there is absolutely nothing that you can do in the scenario. You need to get your loot, reset, reload, use your heals, whatever you need to do, because you have the advantage now. You want to close the gap, but you want to close the gap when they're not shooting at you and taking shots. Right now, I mean, you're just an easy open target. So again, the theme. I'm going to showcase an example in the test range and how you can improve upon this. So what we're going to do, we're going to use this as the example, even though they definitely have hype, but remember head glitches and what those look like in terms of keeping your hitbox small. If somebody's in the high ground, you get the jump on them, and you got to reload, wait for your reload, cover that box like we saw, and then take height or take the other angle, because they're going to expect you to peek from here. Sometimes going up here because your hitbox is equally as large, and it can make their hitbox much smaller if you take height like this. Because now you're a little bit more on equal footing, because let me show you what it looks like. Let's pull out the Mirage, and I'll give you an example of what that could look like. Mirage is, and I highlighted this for those that are on specifically console, to use a Mirage to kind of understand what a hitbox is. A head glitch is being able to see just over, let's say, a corner, but they can only see partial of your body. So I'm going to put the clone here. I'm going to stand where the bot is here so you guys can see that. So all I can really see is either the head to hit or like that shoulder, and my whole body would be exposed if I was standing here, which is where the benefit is. So just keep in mind that type of positioning whenever you're trying to get the jump on the opponent. But remember, let's say they have a nasty head glitch. This is probably an even better example from what we saw earlier. Let's say the Mirage clone was here, and you got those shots off on them. Let's say you're a little further down right here. Let's just give an example. Their hitbox is at like half right now, right? So if we were about half and we were playing more or less that box, I'm going to control... There we go. But my hitbox is like full. If you look down, they would see my whole hitbox. I land a few shots, I reload. Now if I climb up, I can't see the legs, but now I can see their whole body. And that really is key, to be able to see the whole body. Keep in mind that they had higher elevation, and the higher the elevation, like as you can see, the bigger problem you have, because your hitbox is so large, and the smaller their hitbox is. So this is the box that I have to hit when all they have to do is just look down, and pretty much you just don't make the game harder for yourself. That's the problem. And that's the problem that I'm seeing in all these clips. You're playing Apex on hard mode, essentially. For pro players, they're trying to make the game as easy as possible by having better positioning. The easier you make the game, well, the better your clips and footage is going to look. So have that as a major takeaway. All right, let's go on to the next clip. Now, this was submitted as a win, and I found this one very, very interesting. I want to see if you guys can guess it. I'm going to pause for just a second, and I want you to ask the question, what is wrong in this scenario? Now, this is titled a win, but I want you to type what is wrong from the beginning of the clip. And I notice every time I click play on this specific clip, I know, again, don't worry about your quality, guys. We kind of got the point in terms of, like, as long as we can see it, I think we can learn from it, right? Okay, so if I click play, it like lags for a second, that's good. So what's interesting, and this is probably the luckiest win I have ever seen in my whole entire life, you didn't heal. You have a battery, you have red armor. Even if you popped a battery and then went in, I mean, I could justify that, understand it, because I know later you have a knock, but you are relying on sheer luck here. This Valkyrie, I don't know how they did not eliminate you. She panicked, she flew up. This shot right here should have eliminated you. Somehow they managed to only do like 9 damage onto you. And then you kept spraying. Not only did you not slow it down still, you still pushed. Now, it works. Now, listen, there are situations, and I talk about this in my spectating series, where circumstances like this can work. But is it the smartest play that you could have made? Is it a healthy decision? Think of like high tier ranked. If this was a Pred, Master, even Diamond lobby, do you think for a moment that you were going to get this lucky? Maybe, let's just say like you ran into an NRG member. Do you think an NRG member is going to start flying around like that? Do you think that anybody on a higher skill level is going to start flying around and just missing their shots and just not know what to do? The answer realistically is no. Respect every player. Respect anybody you're facing up against and assume that they're a decent player. And the reason why, and I teach this a lot whenever we coach, is that if you don't, you're going to make mistakes like this and then wonder why it doesn't work out. So consider this a lucky clip. Consider yourself lucky. I just want to highlight to the community, don't fall for the traps of if somebody is making weird decisions. I call this out on my stream because I like making, I guess, quote unquote dumb decisions because they're good for content. Like, this is good content. This is crazy. Like, that is like, if you set up and said, I decided to do the strangest play of my whole entire life, that's good content. Just make sure you know the difference between good content and trying to improve. Now, this came from a console member. I believe that's what they said in the email. Now, what's interesting here is that this individual, I'm going to highlight here, I'm going to pause. They had the information initially. There's a lot of tips I can give here, which is why I chose this clip specifically. Remember to play off your teammates. And if you're playing with a Bloodhound, a scan could give you information, but the downside, if they are hunkered down, that they're going to be holding angles and scared. Every time somebody gets scanned, you're going to be holding and waiting. So remember the strength that a Bloodhound can give in terms of a scan and the downside. So if we look here, we see that they're already looking at them, meaning that they're already prepped and prepared, because I mean, even, and this is a silver lobby, imagine even a higher lobby, that they're going to be even more prepped, assuming where that the individual is going to be coming from. Again, scans are helpful. This is why Seer is so strong and overpowered, essentially, because Bloodhound, well, they really kind of highlight the direction which they're coming from. So they get beamed, but they don't get knocked yet. It's not bad. Now, there is a mistake that could have been changed here. Now, your teammate could have waited as well. They definitely just kind of shoved it for the sake of it, which is okay. You could have made a decision to stay with your teammate, but I noticed you didn't have any big heals, so you opted for the latter, which isn't bad at all. Now, what you could have done, and I don't have the context for the clip completely, is are all these boxes armor swaps looted? Otherwise, using slow heals like the way we're seeing here really takes you out of the fight for an extended period of time, especially if you're being shot from above and your teammate still hasn't even healed either. Getting those armor swaps is going to be key to getting back into the fight. So this whole time I was explaining that was just a big moment of now essentially we're out of the fight. Now your teammates either need to slow it down or calm to your teammates. That's another thing you can do. So if your teammate wasn't healing, usually what I do with randoms, and they'll sometimes they'll listen, sometimes they don't. I don't hear any comms, so I assume that you're solo queuing. That if they don't listen, just say, hey, slow it down, slow it down, slow it down, let's heal, let's heal, let's heal. Unfortunately, your teammate ran in, so that's probably a tip I can provide. Remember, teammates make mistakes. I'm going to pause this here. Teammates all make mistakes, and it's okay to calm to your teammates, but also try to take ownership of the situation as well. Like, maybe I could have calmed. Maybe I could have been more aggressive in telling you, hey, please heal up, heal up, heal up, heal up. Just kind of spamming it. If they don't listen, well, that's completely on them at that point. So let's skip a little further ahead, but that's a little tip in terms of comms. You got a great knock here. You caught them off guard, and I love your decision making in terms of just going for this fight, essentially. Because you had the armor advantage. Now, all you need to do at this point, and you play it real smart here, is you went for the res, which is positive because that's a great passive for Mirage, and then you essentially just need to slow it down. Unfortunately, your Octane was not necessarily there, and that's okay, that happens. We'll watch the remainder of this. Good nade spam, and you do slow it down. You play cover really, really well. I think the only initial part that I saw was with the Bloodhound of knowing what your teammates and what they're going to do. This angle that you held was fantastic. There's really not much more I would say outside of just the small decision. Let's go back to the beginning and let's recap this to get you further back into the fight. If your teammate Bloodhound scans, make the safe assumption as you pick up, use this right here as cover, right? As we review this clip, use this as cover. And especially if it causes you to climb up and you're lacking information after the scan is gone, assume that they're going to be looking for you. So make sure if your teammate is pushing that you're making an aggressive push, but keeping your hitbox as small as humanly possible. That'll be tip number 1. The next tip I would provide, try not to slow heal unless you've already looted all these boxes. You probably comment down below. I just didn't have the context of how many armor swaps had already occurred during the fight. Then the other tip I would provide is to make sure to calm to your teammate to slow it down, slow it down, slow it down. So then you can heal and get that jump. So once you, and keep in mind how many teams are in this area, especially if you hear a fight, you got the jump here, the other person jumped off, that's actually good information. Remember this. Remember that information that you see. If they were getting shot and you know there's another team up above, where can you position so you can garner more information from here? So you got the push. Now, you know that's a complete knock, but you saw that there was bullets happening. So it's getting that small information because they were fighting up top. What is that other team doing? And do I have the information of is this a full squad or not? You can put your decoy in to bait. That's also a good one. Maybe set it up somewhere while you're moving around, while you're rezzing. People tend not to get necessarily faked out by Mirage clones, but I really applaud you for going for the effort for the res here. You kind of wide swung there, but luckily they missed their shots, and it's perfectly okay, but you play the angle here, and you nade spam. And at this point with your shots, there's not much more you can change mechanically here. But so the tips that I provided for you is probably what I would look best. If not, leaving the building as a whole once you finish your knock and just kind of leaving your teammates to assess what the situation is. Because you know that there were shots above, and sometimes it's better just to leave, get out, secure your KP for you and your team, rather than risking your own life. I know that's really greedy, but realistically, the advice I always give to everybody is to play your life. Even when you'll hear me on stream, I'll tell them, please play your life, play you, play you, play you. It's so easy to play for the squad and for the team, because that's what you want to do to be, you know, a wholesome person. So that's why I applaud this individual so much for, you know, the fact that they're trying. But just remember to put yourself at the priority, because if this person, once they eliminated these 2 individuals and just got out and then assess the situation, if there was 2 people and you realize, okay, well, that probably isn't going to happen, then you know that you can just go to zone and just kind of play your life, because the likelihood of you getting those reses and everything is going to be pretty low in general. So hopefully all these tips are helpful. Remember, the biggest takeaways as we wrap up and kind of, you know, just remember is play your head glitches, remember your armor swaps, remember the strengths and weaknesses of a Bloodhound compared to, let's say, a Seer. Remind your teammates to heal. Try not to cross an open field. Try to minimize damage where, if any, and all possible. And also play geometry that is near you. So that's a lot of tips, very constant theme that we're kind of seeing with today's episode. Comment down below what you think these individuals could have done better. I just appreciate the fact that you guys are willing to kind of listen, and I think we're all growing as a community. I look at these clips and I have them as reminders for myself to improve it and get better as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. If there's a lot of likes, let's try to do another episode this week. If you want to enter in, the email is going to be in the description down below. I checked the email, and that's where I got all these clips from. Don't worry too much about quality. Again, as long as at least like a minute or so of gameplay, ideally. So, and even if you have a question there, what to improve upon, I'll try to include it in the future episodes as well. Thank you guys, and I'll see you all in the next episode.